So what I want to talk about today is the concept of event-driven cost reductions, a methodology of actually staying ahead of the curve. Customers, they're terrible. They take cost from us the whole time. They demand price reductions and constantly erode our margins. So this is a proven methodology for actually staying ahead of that curve. Sell price erosion is a real challenge in any industry. Traditionally what happens is that we give away our customers' demand a sell price, and we then try and recover our gross margin afterwards, constantly playing catch up. So one of the key principles I want to talk about is how we utilize lean to realign that value chain. So does your gross margin life cycle look like this one? Customers demanding cost reductions, constantly fighting, looking for more and more aggressive cost reductions. We eventually do a deal with the devil, and we actually take it on board. We say we'll put up with it, we'll catch up, we'll make it up later on. Suddenly we get back to the office, we sit down, and we realize that our gross margin has dropped through the floor. The panic sets in, absolute panic sets in. Realize that we're just about to start burning cash, or probably have been burning cash for some time, and that's where we get to this one. The bloodletting commences. Every organisation has gone through this at some stage or another, where the bloodletting starts. We start with our talented staff. It's unfortunate. That's generally where our biggest leverage spend can actually come from, our talent, our staff, and inevitably it ends up being the operation and supply chain staff that it hits first. We then get on to the point where we look at the next level, cost reduction. We burn our suppliers. We withhold payment. We return product that was never had anything wrong with it in the first place. We set about burning the relationship that had made us successful in the first place. We then discover we've got inventory sitting in our warehouse, inventory sitting in our supply chain, inventory in transit throughout the extended supply chain. Just when we get grips of everything that's going on, customer reappears, and in order to place the next order, and to guarantee the next order, to guarantee the next purchase order, they stand there and they demand the next price reduction. We have two solutions to that. We can either go back through the loop again, doing more deals with the devil, constantly playing catch up, or inevitably, which has all too often happened over the last number of years, the operation closes. It's a real intangible output to the ever-decreasing price structure that we operate under and the gross margin that we operate under. So what we set about doing was a lean analysis of this value chain. And rather than looking at the total value, or the just operational value chain, we looked at the total value chain. So our supply chains were misaligned, right? We had our supply chain functions all operating at different speeds. We had lack of synergy between different parts of our supply chain. We had fractious and contentious supply chains. We had ourselves fighting with customers, playing capacity off against customers. We were fighting amongst ourselves within the operation. We were constantly pushing, shoving to try and make margin, trying to get any margin back any place in the product life cycle. We were burning our suppliers. We were shutting down operations. We were withholding payments. We were pushing out deliveries. We were pulling in deliveries. We were taking visibility off the table so that we could actually do to our suppliers what our customers were doing to us. So we perpetuated that routine of actually burning suppliers and creating fractious relationships. We adopted a wait-and-see attitude. We identified that elements within the supply chain had a wait-and-see attitude. We wait and see what happens next. Maybe the golden lights will actually come. Maybe an angel customer is going to come along, is going to walk in and offer us 3 times more than we currently have. Maybe we'll find one customer that we can actually do a rolled average margin on and recover. Maybe we'll see our way through this one. Supply chain inventory was building up in the supply chain. It was building up in our operation. It was building up in our suppliers' operation. Because we were aggressively pushing a wait-and-see environment, there was inventory building up to wait and see would orders come in. There was inventory building up to see would we actually place orders with our suppliers. We were placing forecasts. We were giving indicators of inventory, of purchase orders to follow. We were building it up all over the place. Suppliers adopt a self-preservation approach. naturally, in the same way as we should have been doing with our customers. Suppliers were adopting natural self-preservation. They were cancelling credit terms. So where we might have been on net 30, net 45, net 60, that was dropped to cash in advance, 30% down, 60% down. The larger down payments. So cash flow got immediately hit. So rather than being able to get cash from our customers to roll through our organisation and pay our suppliers, we were having to pay up front. So these were big hits on the supply chain. Consequently, R&D spend reduced. So the net reaction was that our NPI pipeline diminished. Our new products, which should have been upsetting the technology, driving new technology through the organisation, weren't actually in the pipeline anymore. So we were taking cost out of all of the areas that were adding value to the organisation. Our three MOO that we looked at, our three pillars of lean. We had burden on our organisation, we had burden on our suppliers, we had burden on our customers. We had variation building up everywhere, right? Variation in our demand cycles. We had variation in our manufacturing cycles. We were playing one supplier off against another supplier, so you had variation of the quality that was coming in. And then if we look at the wastes, the MUDA within the organisation, I've already spoken about skills and the brain drain that we were having every time we looked, every time we turned around. Defects were building up. Suppliers were rushing to make products. When we eventually did put deposits, and when deposits were placed on products, there was a rush to make product. We had our supply chain were losing skills, and therefore defects were building up. Inventory was building up, and inventory was causing an issue throughout the thing. So all of the pillars of lean, we were hitting on an ongoing basis. So we identified huge amounts of waste within the organisation, huge amounts of opportunity to drive improvement. So the supply chain solution, simple supply solution for event-driven cost reductions was quite apparent. An event is a clearly defined set of actionable plans with deliverables. So you were able to identify that if we do A, B, and C, we were going to deliver the following projects. We had timelines identified for delivering. We had tangible results identified for delivering. Voice of the customer and voice of business. VOC is one of the key principles of lean, making sure that we understand what our customer is looking for. But our internal customer, the voice of the business, is equally important. So we spend some time, and we spend some time now working with customers to align the voice of the customer and the voice of business, making sure that they are clearly aligned and functioning as a unit. Service level agreements, identifying service level agreements with our customers and extending those service level agreements down the supply chain, making sure that there was clear transparency. We were able to build the first bridges on an S&OP process. So when customers were giving us demand, when customers were giving us life cycle, we were able to extend that down the supply chain and give our suppliers visibility of that. Active life cycle management. We were able to now start looking at the customer's needs and expectations over 12, 18, 36, and 60 months and start mapping design cycles to match those. Start mapping the activities and the events around our supply chain activities to meet those demands. So we're proactively working for long-term solutions, proactively driving solutions throughout the extended supply chain. There's an alternative way forward. Start with a service level agreement with our customer. You notice there's no fighting going on here. So we've got a service level agreement that we set with our customer. We extend this service level agreement down the supply chain. Right? We identify the key life cycle events that are going to happen, when they happen, and how they happen. We work only with partners that are buying into the same ethos. We work only with partners who are strategically aligned with us to service our customer's customer. So we have a full extension of supply chain. We then set about our life cycle event planning. Identify events that will start driving cost out of our product, start driving costs out of our operation, and start driving costs out of our supply chain. And we identify when they are going to kick in over a period of time. We identify clearly defined action plans as to who's doing what, when, where. What activities are internal, what activities are part of the extended supply chain, what design evolution cycles we have to look at. So we've got clearly identified and actionable plans with key resources identified across those to deliver. We see our gross margin grow. We grow our gross margin. We see it creep up ever so slightly. We maintain control on our inventory. We make sure that the right inventory is at the right place at the right time to support the right customer needs. Customer places their orders against the service level agreement. They know exactly what their price structure is going to be. We control the shrinkage on the margin. Right, so we're able to grow it up. We shrink it back down again because we've just given a nominal price reduction to our customer in line with our service level agreement. We shrink our margin back down again. We stick with the next round of event planning to make sure that we're looking at the next horizon, the next horizon, the next horizon. Make sure that we're on track, on target the whole time and working towards the defined solution. And then we constantly grow and shrink our gross margin throughout the life cycle of the product. In a nutshell, the top line there is just an indication of our price. We can offer predefined price erosion plans in place. We can offer structured plans to our customers at the service level agreement. At point X in time, after 6 months, we will give you a 3% reduction. After 9 months, if you help us qualify an alternative redesign, we will give you another price reduction. After 12 months, if you hit a price structure, we can give you an alternative. So we can actually manage our life cycle accordingly. We can identify that after 36 months, the sustainability of price versus margin is such that we need to launch the next generation product. And we can start planning for that now, as opposed to planning for it in the future. Right? And the blue line underneath is just showing how we actually grow our margin, and then when the price reduction kicks in, we shrink it back down again. We grow it, we shrink it back down, we grow it, we shrink back down. And the key premise there is that we always know what our baseline operating price and costs are going to be. Some of the typical events in event-driven cost reductions that we look at. Horizon 1, we break it out into Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3. So Horizon 1, we're talking about a lean review on the order to cash cycle. How can we convert our orders into cash faster? We're talking about Tier 2 supplier cost negotiations. Right? So which suppliers are we going to work with? We'll work with those that are probably at a Tier 2 level. We'll work with those that have less of an impact on our supply chain. Warehouse and logistics lean review. So again, how can we eke efficiencies out of our warehouse operations, out of our logistics operations? How can we look at reducing transit times? How can we look at reducing costs associated with the warehouse and logistics functions? And again, BOM rip-downs. So whether it's in the high-tech sector, which is where I spent 20 years, or whether it's, as we've now discovered, in Flex, where they're doing a bill of materials rip down of a pair of Nike shoes. The fundamentals remain the same. What are the cost drivers? How do they all do? How do they all stack up? Can we do a bottom-up cost aggregate and make sure that we can see what everything is in a product, how it all stacks up, who's adding value, and is the value real? Is there inflation going on in the bill of materials any which way along the way? Horizon 2, we start looking at more structured plans, these ones that take longer to deliver. So, tail spend analysis. 80% of our spend happens with 20% of our suppliers. 80% of our purchasing and procurement team's activities happen with 20% of our spend and 20% of 80% of our suppliers. So a huge amount of our talent is going to manage the back end of the procurement spend. So we do a tail spend analysis. So can we reduce from 200 external suppliers, each with very, very small spend, can we consolidate that into a smaller number? Can we work with one partner who will become tail spend, who will manage the tail spend as a third-party service? So there's real value add to be had in that, because we're now leveraging our spend with fewer suppliers and getting much, much better traction in our supply chain. Six Sigma yield analysis. So we're working with our suppliers and with our customers to do Six Sigma analysis on yield. So now we're actually looking at the variation. Now we're looking at how the variation is impacting our yield and driving that out. Gold plating review. Again, I said I spent 20 years in the high-tech sector. It was electronics, and principally everything was gold plated. So one of the areas we constantly looked at was, could we reduce the content of gold in a product? But if we look and take that premise on every product that we make and every service that we deliver, are we gold plating it? Are we giving the customer more than they actually need? And can we realign our supply chain to actually just give the customer marginally more what they need, not twice more what they need? Outsourcing projects. Do we have the right partners? Should we be looking at changing our supplier partnership? And then on the longer term, Six Sigma at the suppliers. So if we have a Six Sigma operation in-house, we've now got good control on how we're actually managing our internal Six Sigma process. Would it be better if we extended our Six Sigma operation to our suppliers, so that our suppliers are giving us better product, and we can actually integrate that better, faster, quicker, and our yields are go up. So we actually invest earlier in the process. Design for Six Sigma. John spoke about it earlier of actually getting the design cycle right. If your design cycle is right, your cost of manufacturing will be incrementally lower. So we start looking at design for Six Sigma, again on Horizon 3, making sure that our next generation products will be that 3.4 defects per million units. That's what we're looking at there. And again, looking at our next generation product releases, making sure that we have enough time, talent and resources teed up to deliver that on time every single time. Some of the value-add proposals, event-driven cost reductions is something that we obviously do. Supply chain alignment, it's a big initiative that we're looking at right now with our extended customer base, making sure that we can give value-add all around. ISO 28000 is supply chain security is becoming a big issue globally, and there's a lot of focus going on that one. So again, I think I'm out of time now, John, at this stage, am I? Yeah. So I thank you for your time, and if there's any questions, shout.